I'm joined now by Seth Schachner, who's the Managing Director of Strat Americas, which specialises in advising clients on media and technology partnership.
I think a lot of these enterprises are looking to Netflix as probably, the top horse in the race, and which had a huge market capitalization, trying to compete with them. 4 years ago, when quote unquote the streaming services all launched, if you will, you needed to keep everything in-house and almost hoard the content to build your own Disney Pluses or HBO Maxes or Paramount Pluses, whatever it was.
But there's an interesting kind of push and pull going on in Hollywood between embracing the theaters, which have basically been the lifeblood of this industry, and which I think the traditional Hollywood interests really want to support. But also we had a pandemic and we've had this outburst of the streaming landscape, and the two are kind of in tension right now. So there's a lot of toggling back and forth, and we've had periods of time where there hasn't been that much to see in the movie theaters, and periods like now where there's a little bit more, like Avatar coming back.
This is a platform that has been out there for quite some time. Putting aside what happened yesterday, which was, I think, unprecedented, it's actually a pretty reliable platform if you're going to book stadium tours.
I do think over time, if they can free up those exclusivities between these venues and the ticketing services, then yes, it's good to have more competition that's in there. I will say this: biggest platform, most scalable. The artists are turning to it. They're not coming out and supporting it in any big way, but they're using it regularly. So got to wonder about that a little bit. A really cool thing about collectibles mostly, right? I mean, people are taking these things home. There's scented vinyl, colored vinyl. I think Taylor Swift's got stuff that you could form a clock out of. So it's a super cool thing from a collectible standpoint. I also think some of the younger generation sees it as a means to connect with artists, actually. Yeah. So it's more of a direct-to-artist fan collection, and everyone's on board with it. It's part of a good rising.
Walk us through the ways that TikTokers really monetize their content now.
For me, it's all about the sponsored, post the sponsored content.
Twitter has always been somewhat of a struggling media platform.
Could we actually see TikTok banned here in the U.S.? I think that's the biggest question on everyone's minds.
The threats are legitimate, to be honest with you, on both sides of the aisle. Probably the biggest is around data security. There's a really strong underlying concern around AI and that For You page that is the front page of TikTok. Whether that can be manipulated or used to send political messages, propaganda, certainly reducing bots and kind of activating and enforcing the Bots Act that's already been on the books for 6 years. I think all those things, could land in the laps of consumers and could actually help.
What sort of changes do you think Twitter is in for?
Well, firstly, just behind that, if you look at what I think the vision of the founder of Jack Dorsey was, and probably still is for Twitter, it's more along the lines of that, town square or public trust, if you will.
What's at stake for Musk in this trial?
Well, this is an incident that happened like 4.5 years ago. And, in the light of things, it's actually a much smaller sort of overall incident than, what's happened in terms of the drop in Tesla's stock price and, the value that's been kind of decimated. But it's a pretty serious thing, because he made some statements on Twitter. The court looking at it has already called them reckless and false.
Understanding Twitter's algorithms, and I do that by bringing in digital business executive Seth Schachner.
In the short term, the streaming compensation for artists, particularly in music, has obviously been a much tougher challenge for them. But in the long term, when you open up some of these new channels, you not only bring about greater audiences, but you bring lots of different digital platforms that are out there.
Why do you think Twitter finally agreed to this?
I think Twitter has long been a pretty curious, kind of smaller, quirky, kind of unsuccessful digital platform, if you will. And to be, I think, really candid, I don't think the board had a lot of great choices.
Even from the start of kind of the streaming wars 3 years ago, there was probably already too many, choices to have as a consumer. So you can always ask the question, how many of these things do I need?
We are very glad that you are here, Seth.
Florida Film and Entertainment Council Chairman, Seth Schachner.
Seth, thanks so much for coming on.